Yeah, hello everyone. So myself Sujit from Invent Model Technology Solution, and together with me I have my team members Kalpana, Pratiksha, and Dhirendra. So today we are going to present a few more kind of materials or kind of items on the MDM Cloud SaaS, which we have kind of collected from our research and innovation part. So the today's agenda for that is trust and validation. So we know the basic part of trust and validation in MDM SaaS, but let us try to see what the team has collected for us to get additional knowledge and information. And we will try to also understand how we can implement this trust and validation in the real-time project, and what is the actual meaning of this in the MDM landscape. Okay. So let's try to go with the team members. Now we can go to Pratiksha and we can start from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm allowed to share my screen, right?
Yeah, you can say.
Okay. Yeah, is it visible?
Yeah, we can see it. Enable,
Okay.
you can slide and start from starting slideshow.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so we can
we
start.
have already, yeah, sorry, sir.
Yeah, we can start now. We can see it.
Okay. So as we have already covered a lot of topics on Informatica MDM Cloud SaaS, so today the agenda is we'll be covering trust and validation in detail. And next would be the steps and implementation of trust and validation in MDM Cloud SaaS. So I'll be explaining about the trust and validation in detail. So here it is written that in Informatica MDM Cloud SaaS, trust and validation are core components. Why it is called core component? Because it is the trust and validation are used to help are used to get the master record, that is the golden record. And like it is written here, are core components used for data survivorship and data quality. So we define the trust score in data survivorship, and the validation rule is written in data quality. So that is for data quality. These mechanisms help determine which value should be retained in the master record, that is the golden record, when multiple source records contribute to the golden record. So when multiple records are there, so based on the trust value, we determine the of records and we want to find the golden record out, or out of it. So on what basis we'll get the golden record? So on the basis of trust score, the higher the score, that record would be taken as the golden record. Each source system has an assigned trust score which dictates how reliable its data is compared to other sources. So all the records would be compared because all the records would have a trust score, and the score with the and the record with the highest score would be considered the master record. So what are the key aspects of trust in Informatica MDM Cloud? First is trust score, that is the trust level. Each source system is assigned a trust level that is 0 to 100 for different attributes. The attributes can be name, address, phone, anything, etc. Yeah. So when we go to the next slide, here it is mentioned that the higher the trust score, the more preference Informatica MDM gives to that source. So, like we have discussed earlier, the higher the trust score, the more preference is given to that source data, right? So now what do we have is decay mechanism. So when we have the trust score, so what is the need of having a decay mechanism? So basically, when we have a more trusted source that updates an attribute, the system adjusts the score accordingly. What it says is that when we have a different trusted source attribute that is updating an attribute, so the system MDM SaaS it would automatically adjust the trust score. So that's why decay mechanism we have. Now what is given as if a lower trust source updates the same attribute. The lower trust source updates means, for example, we have two records that have both the records have lower trust value. So it may not override the golden record unless its trust score surpasses the existing value. So, for example, the golden record has the value of 50 and the lower trust source record has the value 60. So when it is compared, then 50 would be surpassed and 60 value would be taken. So that's when the changes occurs. And if the lower trust source has lesser value like 40, then the golden record value would be 50. It won't change. Next is configuration at the attribute level. So trust is always applied at the attribute level, meaning different attributes. Attributes can be email, phone, name, address, anything that have the different trust scores. For example, CRM system may have higher trust for customer contact details because the CRM is for customer contact details. So it may have higher trust for that. Second is ERP system. ERP system may have higher trust for billing information. Why? Because ERP system works on billing information. So likewise. Next is trust overrides. If a high trust source provides new data, it can override the golden record. If a source that has higher trust value and it is a new data that is being added, so if the value of the trust of this data it is greater than the golden record, so the value would be overridden, the golden record value would be overridden. Second is if a lower trust source provides new data, that lower trust, I'm mentioning again lower trust, it will only override the golden record if the existing value is decayed or marked as outdated. Then only it will be overridden, otherwise, the value would remain the same. Okay, so we go next. So, in this image, we can see that we have a source system CRM, we have a source system ERP, and we have a source system web form. And we have different trust scores that are defined for address, for phone, and for email. Now, as we can see, if the CRM system provides an address, CRM system, the value of the trust score is maximum for the address. So it will be used in the golden record because it has the highest trust score. Now, if we see for the phone, web form has the highest trust value. So web form has 90 for the phone. So that value would be taken for the master record, like it's mentioned here. And then then MDA will update the golden record with the web form value. So similar in case of email. In case of email, the highest value is 95 for ERP. So that value will be taken for the golden record. Okay? Yeah. We can move to the next slide. So here in this image, we have already shown that in MDM Cloud SaaS, first we have to create an entity, and on that customer entity, we can see there are different tabs open: attributes, data quality, match, survivorship, events. So in case of survivorship, here we define the trust values. We have different attributes over there, and we have already explained before that the trust values are defined on attribute level. So here we can define the attributes, the trust value, and here we also have the rank, like you can say the source ranking. So here we can define the trust value. So moving on to the next slide. So I would like Kalpana to come and present the slides going hence. Thank you.
Yes. So second point, we have validation in Informatica Cloud SaaS. So first we define the validation framework ensures the data entering that the system meets quality and consistency rules before being considered for consolidation into the golden records. Or in simple words, we can say that uh, validation downgraded trust scores on by some percentage, as we define in the above definition we have. So here we have some key aspects for the validation. We have like data completeness, data accuracy, business rules, duplicate checks, and data enrichment. For data completeness, we have to ensure that required fields are populated, such as customer, name, email, and phone, and many more. And for data accuracy, we have to use the patterns matching, reference data, or external validation services, such as a postal address validation we have. Now, after that, for business rules, we have to custom the validation rules can be configured on the basis of like phone number must follow the certain format we have. For the duplicate checks, we have to ensure the duplicate records are identified and processed correctly. And for data enrichment, we have to use the external data sources such as Dun and Bradstreet Experience to validate and enrich the data. So these are the key aspects for the validation in Informatica Cloud. Move to the next slide, please. So here in this photograph, we can see the types of the validation. For MDM Cloud SaaS, we have the three types of validation. First one is information, second is warning, and third one is error. So these are the three types of validation we have as we choose. Move to next slide, please. So now we configure the validation process. How can we validate the process? So here we have a 3-step for that. So first, when we new record is ingested or entered, it goes through validation rule before it is considered for the golden records. So first we have to enter the record. Then after that we have to, if validation fails, then the record may be flagged for the review, for rejection, and for corrected automatically. If we found the our rule is failed, then we can record flag for the review, for the rejection, and for the corrected automatically. We can say that. After that, we have, once validation is complete, the record enter the trust framework to determine which attribute contribute to the golden records. So by this process, we can define the rules. So here we have also example for the validation we have, like on the basis of fields like email, phone, and address, we can define the rule. For the email, we can see that we have a must have the special character and valid domain. So for the input, we have fulfill the both conditions, like special character we have and valid domain also we have. So this is the pass. After that, for the as we see, for the phone number must we have 10 digits, but in that we have only 6 digits, so it got failed. And for the address, we must have the postal address, like 123 is main for the New York, so it will pass. So these are the rules as we seen in this photo. Go to the next slide, please. Now we see the key difference between the trust and validation. So on the basis of features, we can define that. On the basis of purpose, like trust determine which source is more reliable on for an attribute, and validation ensures the data quality before the processing. On the basis of scope, it is applied at the attribute label, and on the basis of validation, it applied at the record label. So on the basis of mechanism, trust define the trust score and decay logic, but validation uses on the business rules and checks only. Here we have an example as well, like if we have CRM has the higher trust score for email, its value is chosen for the golden record. As we know, the definition of the trust we have, like if CRM has the anything has the higher trust score, then it will go to the golden record. And for the validation, if email is missing the special character like @, then it has the invalid format we have. So it is flagged as invalid. So these are the character key differences we have in between trust and validation. Now we go to the conclusion between them. So we can define as Informatica MDM Cloud SaaS, trust determine which source system data should be used in the golden record, as we know, and validation ensures that incoming data meets quality and business rules we have. They can together improve the data reliability, accuracy, and governance within the NDM ecosystem. So these are the simple conclusion we have between trust and validation. Go to the next slide, please. Now we have a second point, like explain the steps and implementation of trust and validation in MDM Cloud SaaS. So now I would like to call Dhiren sir, who will explain this.
Thank you, Kalpana. So now I will move on for the next slides and then we'll explain what is it. So trust and validation definition. So to implement trust and validation in Informatica Business 360, we need to configure trust settings at the column level. Define validation rules based on the conditions to manage data quality and reliability. So basically these trust and validations are always applied on the attribute level. For a particular column, we define the trust values or we will define the validation rules like null check or any other data validation rules. So based on that, we make sure that the data is reliable. So to follow the trust and validation, we need to follow some key steps. So that we are going to discuss here. So first is to understand trust and validation. Then second point is configure trust settings. Then we have a third point, define validation rules. And at the end, fourth point, configure trust and validation in the business 360. So, so to understand the trust and validation, we need to see what is a trust. So basically, the trust is a measures the relative reliability of data for a different source systems, considering factors like source system, change history, and business rules. So basically, it is used to define the trust, means how much that particular data is trusted from the source where it is coming from. And then the second thing is validation. So validation basically it checks the accuracy and completeness of a data. In the validation, we can also downgrade the trust values if it is not matching the validation criteria. So so for that reason, we can define this validation rules. For example, if some attribute is having null value, we can define that how much it can be downgraded when this null occurs in the data. So that way we can perform the validation. Move on to the next slide. Then we have to configure the trust settings. So basically it is enable trust. So we can enable the trust at the column level to measure the reliability of data, define trust levels. Basically, it specifies higher trust levels per column from more reliable source systems. Consider data quality and age. So factor in the quality and age of the data when determining trust levels, and then decay. So we need to implement trust decay to account for how reliability decreases over time. So basically, in this one means like as time passes, if there are any decay defined, the data gets downgraded, means like based on the options we choose, right? Fast initial, and then we use slow later, and so we have a two and rapid initial and slow later. Slow initial, rapid later. So whatever strategy we choose, based on that, the data decay happens. And then we have a third point, define validation rules. So identify validation conditions, determine the conditions that indicate invalid data, for example, incorrect format, or if there are any missing values, means null values, or if the data itself is inconsistent. And then create a validation rules, define validation rules that downgrade trust for values that don't meet the defined conditions. And we need to specify the severity as well. It is for determining the severity of the validation failures, e.g. error warning, etc. So then we can configure meaningful error messages, which defines a clear error message to inform users about validation errors, validation failures, and why this validation is failed, so that the users know why this particular validation got failed. Next slide. Okay, and the next point is, and next and last point is configure trust and validation in Business 360. So now we will see how we can configure the trust and validation in Business 360 of the cloud version, right? So for that, all, as we know, all the configuration happens from the Business 360. So you need to log into the Business 360 and follow a certain steps to define the trust and validation. So this process is involve two steps. So first is to create a source system, and then the next step is to define the validation and trust. So for the first step to create the source system, we can go to the Business 360, and from there we can click on the new button from the top, and then the image shown here, right? It will be like displayed here, and from there we need to go to the source system, and then enter the name of the source system, and we can choose the location from the drop down. Basically location is nothing but the project name, means whatever we have created earlier, meaning on which project we need to save this particular source systems what we are defining. So we need to choose the respective project name, and then once this is chosen, then we need to uh, choose the entity, and for which we need to create this particular source system. Basically, we are associating the entity for the system, and these entity can be either customer or product or in anything whatever we have already in the system which we are going to configure, and then we can click on save and validate. Move on to the next. Okay, so then once we have associated the entity with the source system, now we need to define the trust values for that particular entity. So for that region, from the Business 360, we need to click on the business entity, and then we can open the attribute for which we need to define the trust settings, and then we can go to the data quality tab, and from there we can add trust and validation rules. So on this one we can, and then we can save and then test whether the validation rules and the trust values whatever we have created is working fine or not. So once this is done, every time there is entry in the systems, it will validate the trust, and based on that it will perform the operations on the golden records. So we can see here we have the image below. In this image basically we are defining the trust and validations, and then once this is done, we need to save and submit it. So this is the end of the slide. That's all we had for today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, team. It was really a fantastic presentation, and we have really collected very good information related to this topic, the trust and validation. So thanks for your time. And now we can stop the recording.